So this world is magical and mysterious and transient and completely unexpected. But our minds like to shrink everything down into a very predictable pattern because it makes us feel comfortable. It makes us know where things stand. But I think when we do that, over time, part of us dims. Our inner light kind of gets covered over, and we start to isolate more and more, and then we forget that this world is magical, mysterious, and just full of unexpected opportunities to embrace light in more forms and in more ways than we could possibly imagine. So in order for us to stay open, in order to us to continue to dance with the unexpected and play with the transience of life without fear, we train. We do this beautiful Buddhist practice. And there's a particular training I want to talk about today called the 6 perfections, or sometimes called the 6 Paramitas. So the 6 perfections give us something to hold on to in this crazy world where anything can happen at any given moment. They provide this wonderful guidebook, if you will. These concepts of these 6 perfections allow us to build a very strong foundation for a magnificent and magical life that continually opens us to deeper and deeper refinement of light. Opens us to learning what it is that we actually are at deeper and deeper levels. Now, some people take the 6 perfections and they turn it into a homework assignment where now they have another thing to beat themselves up with. So please do not do that. Instead, use these 6 perfections as an invitation to explore where you're hung up, where you hold back from life, from yourself, from light itself, and use them as an opportunity to continually refine all that you are with these very noble qualities that can be manifested quite easily in this world. Some more easily than others, some at times more easily than others. But that's part of the learning process. That's part of discovering your own rough edges. Now again, with these kind of prescriptive concepts, it's very easy to take it and turn it around and then start pushing these ideas on other people and using our judgment to see if they measure up. That's not at all what it's about. If you catch yourself doing that, gently pull back and reset and realize that, oh, I am walking the path. Everything about the path is about my own behavior and what I am doing. Somebody had posted a comment on Facebook, and it brought up the idea of boundaries. And boundaries are something we apply to ourselves, not other people. the way we talk about them, sometimes it sounds like we're pushing it on somebody else, but really what we're doing is we're deciding what is and is not acceptable behavior for us, for our own being to participate in, because we're in this relative world. So if we enter into a situation that breaks a boundary, it's not up to us to try and tackle the other person and lock them down and say, behave how I want you to behave. That's how a lot of people think the world works, but it's not effective. But what we can do is say, oh, this situation is crossing a boundary, so what can I do to remove myself from this situation? Either internally or physically, externally. So it brings the power back into our own being. So as we go through these 6 perfections, try to remember that oh, these are standards that I wish to live up to, not that I want to make everyone else live up to. So the first one is generosity. Sanskrit word is dhyana. This world thrives in generosity. There's this wonderful give and take that happens. If we just look at the cycle of water, it's this beautiful demonstration of generosity, where the water pools and fills a basin, and then it evaporates into the air, where it again gathers in the clouds, and then when it's full, it gives back and it falls. So this first paramita of generosity challenges us to look at, where can I give and take? Because it's not one-sided. It's a cycle of both giving and taking. Being willing to receive from somebody who's trying to give is an act of generosity. And I think we forget that sometimes. We feel like if we want to be generous, then we have to give and give and give and give and give until we're completely depleted, and then crawl up in a hole and somehow re-inflate ourselves, which never works. But that's not really generous, because now you've given to the point of exhaustion, and then those that you gave to may see that, and now they'll feel bad that they depleted you. And so now you've caused harm to them, you've caused harm to yourself. So remembering that generosity is the cycle of both give and take allows us to work on it as a perfection. So we can start to examine in a very non-judgmental way, but from a lens of, how can I do no harm? We can look at, am I giving enough? Am I taking enough to keep those I'm in contact with healthy, to keep myself healthy, to allow this cycle to continue to perpetuate? So again, when we try to look at it from that level of, can this cycle continue, it takes out that element of judgment of this is bad or good. It's more about, is this healthy? Is this a healthy give and take? And when we live that way, this spirit of generosity starts to animate our entire being. It starts to flow through every aspect of our life, and we start to see things moving smoother. We start to notice the things that are meant for us, and we're able to accept them. We're able to start to see the things that we no longer need, and we can just give them we can start to see what we have extra, and when we run into somebody who is in need, we can give without contract. It can be a selfless giving of, here, this is a gift, take it or leave it, and what you do with it is no longer my concern. So when we are giving and receiving, pay very close attention to where we turned it into a contract, where we're trying to get the value out of it, because that's not the spirit of generosity. The spirit of generosity is much more aloof. There's just this wonderful give and take exchange. Now, a beautiful way that we've talked about in other classes to practice generosity is the practice of tonglen, where we take in the suffering and then we exhale out the peace, the joy. And again, that particular practice starts with ourselves. We look for the suffering within ourselves. So if we're working with the paramita of generosity, and we've found that we're kind of clinging when we're doing this give and take, we can start with that and look at that suffering that's happening within our own being, and then release back to ourselves this sense of abundance. And then we can expand that out to the world, where we can take in that sense of lack and exhale out that sense of abundance. And that can help recenter our lives and our mind back onto this practice of generosity. And they're called perfections because these are the things that we continue to practice and polish and refine. When we first start, we might think we're doing really good, and at the kindergarten level, maybe we are. I share my toy and you share your toy, and we get to have playtime. It's fun. But then as we get a little more accomplished, the practice of generosity becomes a little more refined, maybe a little more subtle. And it changes over time. So play with that. Now, the next one is morality, sila. Morality is interesting because a lot of Buddhist schools, they'll actually start everybody at morality. And I think that's very difficult if you have not practiced generosity. Because morality is really taking to heart this concept of doing no harm. And if you're stuck in a place of lack and feeling like you've got to protect every inch of everything, then it's really hard to do no harm. So I would always recommend starting with generosity first, and then move up to morality and ethics. So when we practice the paramita of morality, we're examining our intent and our actions, and we're looking for any type of harm that might be caused by either of those. We might find ourselves in a situation where we could do something and it might be legal by the laws of the land, but we can see how it would cause harm. So in that case, we don't do it. We restrain ourselves. And this practice is very, very quiet. We don't really get any congratulations for doing it. If you start looking for congratulations and kudos, then you've kind of stepped outside of the bounds of morality, because you're turning this beautiful expression of light into something that you're trying to profit on, or something that you're trying to cling to, which will turn into suffering eventually. This paramita, this specific perfection of morality, is the one that gets hijacked in this world. It's the one that people love to push on other people, because it feeds into that sense of control and judgment of other people. You know, this world is unexpected and ever-changing, and we never know what's really going to happen next. So there's this little part of our brain that's trying to keep us safe. And when something unusual happens, you know, that part of our brain jumps in and judges it. Is this good or is this bad? And that our more higher level of brain hijacks it into a sense of morality. It's like, oh, well, they should not be doing that. Or, oh, good, yes, they should be doing that. And neither one of those is practicing the perfections. So again, it comes back to what our actions are. What am I doing? And how am I behaving? What are my intentions in this particular moment in time when I face this unexpected thing? How can I live from the highest ethics, the highest sense of morality possible in this moment? And I think if you look, you'll probably find lots of opportunities to practice. The next one is patience, ksanti. This is one that I struggle with. I know I've had people tell me, wow, you're so patient. It's like, yeah, because I struggle with patience. And I'm very aware of it. So yes, I'm very aware when I get impatient, when I want things to happen faster than they are. So I learn to restrain myself and to just enjoy what's being presented right now. And I know a lot of that impatience comes from this sense of anticipation in order to create this bubble of self-protection. So really practicing patience forces us to really look at our fears. It forces us to really sit with the unknown. This is that part of us like, no, tell me, I want to know, I want this to happen now, because that way I know what's going to happen. We might know something's going to happen, and so we want to get it over with. I'm like, quick, hurry up. You know, I have that right now because I want to move to a different house, but I don't have a house and I have not figured out the financing yet. So I have a lot of impatience to work with. But that's okay, because this is an ongoing practice. We call them perfections, not because there's an end point that, okay, now I have perfect generosity, perfect morality, and perfect patience. You may for a moment. There may be a moment where, all of these perfections have come to fruition, and there's this ultimate moment of yes, everything is as it should be. But then life's unexpected, so it all changes, and now there's something else happens, and then we have to work on the whole process again. So patience is, like I said, one that I've worked with for a long time. And it's one that it's very helpful to just look at it. Don't try to contain it or even restrain it. It's more what I've found has really calmed it, the sense of impatience, is just simply looking at it and observing. And there's this wonderful humor that happens when we see it clearly, where we recognize the foolishness of that impatience, and it helps to keep very lighthearted about it. We don't want to get all heavy on ourselves with any of these, but if we just notice that, oh, I'm getting really antsy that the light hasn't changed yet, and I've got my appointment, and I'm looking at, the GPS is telling me when I'm going to arrive, and it's going to be late, so I need to get there, and the light needs to change. But there's nothing you can do. So accepting our inability to do anything is the key to unlocking this perfection of patience. Surrendering to our helplessness, which is not easy, because we're big and strong and we want to be in control. But in that moment, if we just realize, it doesn't mean giving up and just flopping on the ground, and you're at the light, and so you're just gonna turn your car off and just take a nap, because that's just going to create more harm, right? But in that moment when your blood starts pumping and you're like, I just want this to be over with, if we can just breathe and come back to our body in the present moment and completely release that desire for control, and embrace that sense of helplessness of, there's nothing I can do right now except wait. And I will tell you, if you practice this in your day-to-day life, where you're walking around interacting with people, it will help you immensely when you meditate. Because much of meditation is just waiting for the light. So patience, there is this certain aspect of passivity where we have to just let go, but it's not giving up. So make sure you understand that part, which brings us to number 4, diligence. Or, I don't know how to say the Sanskrit word, I'm going to butcher it, virya. And that means embracing action. So it's almost the exact opposite of the other one. You're like, wait a minute, you're telling me to just surrender and just be patient and accept my helplessness, but no, wait, now I have to do stuff. So diligence means that we resolve to do our practice, that we resolve to come back to these 6 perfections, that we resolve to come back to all of our different techniques and to keep moving along the path. So again, it's not like when we're practicing patience, sometimes we can get hijacked and it feels like, okay, well, there's nothing I can do, I'm helpless, so I'm just going to give up and do nothing. Maybe I'll turn Netflix on and binge watch some videos and just create a little fantasy world to hang out in while everything's happening. But that's just escaping. That's not practicing patience. So what diligence tells us to do is to examine our mind and our life and our motivations and our effort and say, well, okay, I can't do anything about this situation. I can't make the light turn green. But what can I do with my mind in this moment? What can I do with my body in this moment of waiting? I can bring attention and awareness to my full being. I can bring awareness to my full surroundings. So instead of just being consumed by my impatience or consumed by my helplessness as I give up my impatience, I can actually engage with life and see the magnificent beauty that's all around me. I can maybe notice for the first time how blue the sky is, or how white the clouds are today, or this tree that I've never noticed at this stop sign, even though I've been here at this light every day for the past 5 years, but I've never noticed that particular color. So diligence, the sense of effort, the sense of action, keeps us engaged with the path. So we perfect that. And this one we have to be careful about becoming obsessive. Because there's that part of us that wants to use the path as something to keep us just always going, to the point that we turn the path itself into an escape. So look for that flip side and say, okay, am I just, using my spiritual life as a way to ignore the rest of life, my spiritual path? Am I using it as an excuse to avoid living? Because really the two should meld. This is the reconciliation of opposites that we have to deal with. So by practicing diligence, we're active in life. We're engaging with all of these different challenges in a very open-hearted way. And at the same time, we're not clinging to any of it. And of course, what allows us to be able to do that, what allows us to actually practice these perfections, is the fifth perfection of meditation, of concentration, dhyana, where we're able to hone our attention and focus on a single point to the exclusion of everything else. I think for people with all of the different technology that we have now, and the way that it's been designed to actually pull at our attention, this perfection is becoming more and more difficult for people. I think it's always been a challenge, because I think when I first started teaching meditation, the challenge was just getting people to sit down and do it. And then they learned that if they sat, then their attention would start to become one-pointed, and then they could apply it to the different projects in their life. They could apply I focused all on different projects. But as technology has grown up, as the internet grew up, and then all the apps and phones grew up, the computers got much smaller. Now, and then there's a whole attention economy. Like, there's actually a TED Talk on this. You can look up attention economy. So there are things in place that are literally trying to pull your attention towards them. And so that's a whole new level that we have to contend with, that we didn't have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So this perfection of meditation, it's not just about getting your butt on the meditation cushion. Now, of course, we need to do that. Twice a day is better than once a day, but at least once a day. Shutting everything off, turn the phone off, turn the alerts for your email and social media and every way that people can possibly contact you. Turn it off and allow yourself that freedom to sit without distraction, to hone that one-pointed concentration. And as we're doing that, we can practice all of the different perfections. But that very basic foundation, dhyana, concentration, is what makes everything else possible. So make sure you're giving proper time to that. And then, when you stand up from your meditation cushion, take it with you. Start to notice where your attention, where your focus gets weak, and see what you can do to shore that up. And again, be careful, don't beat yourself up over it. It's about just noticing that, oh, when I sit in this particular place, I get very distracted and my mind is all over the place. Do I need to do some energetic cleaning? Do I need to shift the furniture? When I open up my phone and I look at these certain apps, I'm fine for 5 minutes, but then after 10 minutes, my attention's all over the place and I just want to keep going back to the app. Then they have really cool features that you can set timers on your phone that you can turn off different alerts. So there's different ways that we can work with it. I've even heard of people setting hours for when they check email. So you can send them an email anytime, but they're not going to read it except for between their certain office hours. So you can develop different strategies that work for you. And that's part of playing with this perfection of meditation. It's not just honing your concentration on the meditation cushion. It's honing your attention in all aspects of your life. And noticing when you're getting distracted, when you're seeing your mind bounce from place to place, and examining, well, what's really happening? How is this working? What's the driving factor that is triggering this lack of concentration? Sometimes it's because you're not eating properly, sometimes because you're not sleeping properly. So it's not always very cut and dry, which is why we have to do the contemplation practice and investigate. And then finally, it brings us to number 6, the perfection of wisdom, prajna. And this goes back to what I talked about at the beginning, that life is transient, life is magical and unexpected. And it's more than we can ever conceive. So practicing the perfection of wisdom means bringing that awareness that everything is transient into our day-to-day life, into our moment-to-moment awareness that everything is changing all the time. Even our beliefs, even our perceptions. So the way that we look at things, the way that we remember things. Did you know that when you remember an event that happened in the past, you're altering your memory of it just by remembering it? Because you're bringing it to the forefront of your consciousness through the lens of your current perception. So that changes and distorts the original memory, and then that gets stored. So every time you remember something, it's different than the original time you remembered it. So if you're hung up on something that happened in the past, you have no idea what really happened. Because you have all these layers of perception from every single time that you thought about that event, covering over whatever it was that actually happened in that moment. So bringing to bear the perfection of wisdom means that we give ourselves and others and this world tremendous grace, tremendous knowing that everything is born from light. Everything. And yes, some things get very distorted. Some things get very twisted through all these layers of conception and perception and views and beliefs. And it turns it into this big, black, ugly mass of mess. But underneath all of that is the pure essence of light, which you are, which I am, which all of this is. And so we can practice this as a perfection by challenging ourselves to see that essence of light in everyone, including ourselves, starting with ourselves. And then in every single person we meet, every situation we encounter, every physical object we interact with. And we see the light that is ever changing yet changeless. Again, that's that paradox between the absolute and the relative that we work with on this path of Trikaya Buddhism, of coming to really embody and know what that means. So putting all of these together, you can start to see how one interacts with the other, and how each perfection supports the other perfections. So it's not a ladder that we climb. It's more of an entire structural framework that supports our practice as a whole. So there may be times where, I'm feeling that sense of lack and sense I need to protect what's mine. So maybe that's a cue to, I need to work on generosity. Other times we might enter into that mode of harsh judgment, of like, oh my God, these people are so evil. And then that can give us a clue to work on our own morality and say, where am I being unethical? What can I do to be a brighter example of morality. Not so I can shove it in other people's faces, but just so I can hold that principle in this world that seems so corrupt. And perhaps it might inspire somebody else. But that's not why we do it. We do it just to practice that perfection, which of course takes patience, as we're watching everything change and form into new things and then fall away into old things, and we catch ourselves trying to change the speed of life. We can just practice that patience and realize, oh, I can't control that, and that's okay. And then that brings us back to diligence. It's like, okay, well, what can I do? Where can I apply my effort? And, oh, I need some concentration, meditation, in order to actually be effective in any of these. And then as we're doing all of that, we see the endless transitory nature of light unfolding forever. It brings us back to wisdom. So it's this beautiful structure that we can play with and explore different avenues on in order to perfect our own being. So I highly recommend investigating and playing with and utilizing the structure of the 6 Paramitas as a wonderful framework of your practice, of your life itself. It's a very noble path.